Developing Our MathMinds is a series of conversations and resources about math that is intended to be a journey of growth for families over several weeks. Each week, Minds lead mathematician and product director Brandon Smith and content development manager Nina Wu will be talking about the adjustments families are making to learning at home and the opportunities this situation provides for changing our relationship with math.
So you're still going at this sheltering in place life, and maybe you found a way to survive, and maybe you found some semblance of a new normal. We're coming to terms and accepting that you're going to be your child's teacher for the rest of the school year. Perhaps you'd like to do more than survive. Let's level up our teaching skills. The goal in this video is to bring you from, let's say, an open mic night survival mode teacher to a rock star facilitator of your child's learning. I'm going to share some tips, insights, and ideas of how to level up your at-home teaching. One of the most important things you could leverage is actually a soft skill, which I'm guessing you actually utilize all the time as your child's parent or guardian, and that is tuning into your child and listening to their social cues. Knowing when your child has had enough versus when they can stand to be pushed and challenged a little further. Wow, honey, you got these all right and you finished this in 5 minutes. Great. Try avoid giving your students things that are too easy for them, things that they can just breeze right through. Yeah, I totally get wanting to give your students things that are really easy for them to do that they can just breeze through and they can feel successful in, but it's a very comfortable place to be in, and without that struggle and overcoming of challenge, there's not as much deep learning happening there. If you've watched another video that Brandon and I recorded earlier, we spoke about how some of our most potent memories are when we've overcome an obstacle and confronted challenge. So, these are little moments where you can give your students those opportunities to embrace struggle and overcome something and really have that win that they can own. These are those moments. I don't care if this is hard. You're not going outside or taking a break until you're done with all this. We said 2 hours of math today, so let's get to it. Yeah, so you of all people know your child best and know when your child is frustrated and when it's just too much and when to call it quits. There's no need to push them to frustration, because at that point they're not learning anyway, and you don't want to code negative memories. Also, what is time anymore? It feels like an arbitrary construct, so there's not necessarily a need to stick to the schedule to a T. If your child has kind of lost it by some time, you can call it quits and just find another time when they're refreshed. You can take breaks. Taking breaks is super important. Return to it another time. It's still going to be there for them to learn.
So 3/4 plus 1/4 make 1, just like a fourth is like a quarter, so 3/4 and 1/4 make $1. Do you get why 3/4 plus 1/4 equals 1? Okay, because 3/4 is like 3/4 and 1/4 is like 1/4 and they make $1. Okay, but you know how 75 cents plus 25 cents equals $1? That's why 3/4 plus 1/4 make 1 whole. Okay, it's like quarters.
So explaining something the same way multiple times also doesn't really work. Yeah, I think we all know that hearing the same explanation 5 different times isn't going to get through to us any clearer, isn't going to help us learn anything better. I think we can all draw from memories from our childhoods of when someone's explanation just didn't work for us. And, we can think back to some of our best educators are the ones who could reach us, and maybe because they tried other ways of explaining things to us. So this is where you're going to be asked to really step up as a facilitator or teacher. You can read from your child's social cues that something's not making sense, and maybe, this one explanation just isn't doing it for them. So maybe you have to be creative, and maybe it's switching your drawings, switching from a drawing to acting it out with your hands, switching from acting out with your hands to acting it out and doing a role play with your family or something. Maybe it's switching contexts, and maybe, blocks aren't making sense, but maybe slices of pie are making sense, and maybe that doesn't make sense, and maybe you have to move to like rain clouds. And I'm really grateful to some of my math educators who were just relentless and tried like 10 different ways to explain the same math concept to me. And eventually you'll get through, but just tune in and listen and like kind of keep track with your child, like what's starting to make sense, and shed some light to a topic, and what's not making sense, and like go towards the light. If you finish all these problems, I'll give you a treat. If you don't finish this, you're getting 10 minutes off your screen time today. Yeah, at the end of the day, you want to build a culture where the reward system is really just the value of learning something and accomplishing something for yourself. And, no punishment for not learning something, because maybe today's not the day and you don't want to discourage not trying again. Remember to celebrate failures and celebrate working hard towards something. The fact that they tried is really valuable. And yeah, if you want to build up that persistence, just try again the next day. At the end of the day, part of being a rock star facilitator in this case is just really just like being available to your child's emotional needs, and just really striking that delicate balance of being compassionate and firm, finding things that they're able to do, but with a little bit of productive struggle, and really just tracking and meeting their needs. The next way in which you can elevate your at-home teaching skills is by being mindful of the language that you're using. Your language reflects your attitude towards learning, and your children will pick up on this. So, come on, it's not that hard. Or, it's math. Of course it's hard. I don't care if it's hard. I don't care how hard it is. Yeah, you can see how that doesn't probably, it doesn't sound that great. But really just remember to speak empathetically. One of my favorite sentence starters or phrases that I speak from is starting with, I understand. Like, I understand that this is really hard to learn. I struggled with it, and I understand that it's very conceptually difficult. It's hard to put pictures to this, and I understand that the numbers are confusing. And I think in using that phrasing, it shows your student that you're seeing them where they're at, and by stating it out loud, it gives them an opportunity to maybe correct you. Maybe that's not what is hard for them. And so it's kind of a way for you to double check that you actually understand what is the struggle for them, and maybe it'll open a door for them to offer what they are struggling with, and then from there you can actually address that. But I think speaking from an empathetic place by using the phrase, I understand where you're coming from or something, it shows that you are on the same page, you're coming from the same place, and it shows some solidarity that I think could be really comforting when learning something as challenging as math. Another thing to avoid saying is praising your child for how smart they are. Wow, you're so smart. That's because you're so smart. This one's kind of a hard one to change in the way we speak. And, it's something I struggled with when I first learned. But there's this whole school of thought and all this research about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And, the fixed mindset is, kind of stating you're so smart, praising a child for how smart they are. What the research has shown is that students with a fixed mindset believe that you're either born smart or you're not born smart. And that's not the case. We all have the capacity and ability to learn new things. So, if they just think they're not a math person or that they're not smart, then they're not going to try as hard and work hard, which is what is needed to learn some new math concepts or just learn in general. So the thing to do is really praise hard work. Instead of saying, wow, you're so smart, you could say, good job, like you worked really hard, like that was really hard work, or that was really good work that you did. And that helps build a growth mindset, meaning students have the self-belief that they can grow, which is true. Like our brains are, constantly being rewired and can constantly grow and change. And so that subtle shift in language will help facilitate that kind of growth mindset. So kind of piggybacking off of the language that we use, another way you could beef up your facilitator skills would be to ask good questions and good follow-up questions, because questions really help extend learning and like help you dig in deeper. Try to avoid this scenario. Wow, you got everything right. 100%. Good job. Yeah, so instead of just ending, checking your child's work and being like, cool, you're good to go, okay, they might get a little annoyed at you. So refer to the social cues if, you could maybe feel if they could like stand a little extra time with this topic. But, you could say, wow, you got everything right. Good job. How about let's look at this one problem. How did you get this answer? And so you're taking it past the answer itself, and by doing that, you're opening up to new places, new connections, new discussions. It's also a really good way to kind of figure out if they got something right for a wrong reason. Sometimes it's a fluke. And so just, you don't have to go through every one. Maybe pick out one or two just to make sure that they can explain their thought process and their reasoning, and just for your child to be able to put words to their thinking is a really good metacognitive skill. And this isn't very profound, but it's really more of a reminder of the power of the question, why? I mean, you could take any activity that your child is doing and just ask them why. And it's a tried and true good question, and it, gets them to explain their thinking to you. I like to push students to explain further for when they get things wrong and right, because that also feeds into a culture of celebrating hard work. It also avoids a culture of kind of reprimanding mistakes, like they only have to explain their reasoning when they get something wrong, and so it feels like explaining feels like a punishment. But if they're just asked to explain why all the time, it celebrates the hard work of it all. And like I said, questions are just such a good way to extend engagement. Just stay a little bit longer with the topic before they move on. If you keep them there a little bit longer, maybe you can try to start making connections across topics, or maybe you can relate two math topics to one another, or, connect math to social studies or something. For example, like some good questions would be like, how is this math question related to something else you learned or something else you see around the house? Okay, so maybe what if you're one of those people who, don't have the time to sit next to your child all day and kind of oversee their learning because you're also working. There are some check-in questions you could use at the end of the day. So, honey, how was school today? I mean, we all know the answer to that one, right? Good, one-word answer. So how do we avoid one-word answers? Instead, some good check-in questions might be, what was something you struggled with today? What was a challenge you overcame? And I love those questions especially because they help build a culture that celebrates struggle. What surprised you today? What inspired you? What gave you a new idea today? What brought you joy today? How would you like tomorrow to look? And I think those are some good questions that hopefully will drive more than one-word answers, and will get your student talking a little bit more. And then that should open up to more conversations you can have as a family. So let's say for the past month or so, you've been doing the basics, kind of what you've been assigned from your teacher, and you've been doing, let's say, the worksheets, the assigned work, watching videos online, and maybe playing some occasional games like ST Math or something. And you really, have this inkling that there's more that could be done. And you're right. I think a lot of these resources are really great fodder to build upon and design great extension activities from. And this is kind of my job, but I think, it's something that everyone can do. So how can we bring more life and learning into these given resources? I think most simply, you can make it social. Bring in another person, a friend over a phone, maybe an older or younger sibling to be a new teacher or student. Talking is just a great way to process things. And if you're not available to, make it social with your student, reach out to your community and do it virtually. Another thing you can do to kind of spice up your resources is you can make it a game. So, for example, even though ST Math is already, gamified puzzles, we have really great family and teacher resource packets that have lots of new ideas and new games and activities that build off of ST Math. You could turn mundane math questions into a quiz show or a game show for the whole family to play. You could have your students create scavenger hunts, create maps, make hints, solve a mystery. Within Mind Research Institute, we usually have an annual game-a-thon in which students are creating new math board games or card games, obstacle courses, and maybe challenge yourself to make a game that's not a board game. Those are the hardest to make. But you could turn most anything into a game, and it's a really fun practice, and it brings new life to your mundane math problems. Another thing you can do is make it active. Bring something from the computer screen or from paper into life by physicalizing it. Maybe act out some word problems, record it as a video, share that video with some friends and share them with each other, make it social again. Acting out math word problems is a really great way to process and demonstrate comprehension. You could, for example, also act out ST math puzzles. I think that could be really fun to bring the screen to life. You could also act out the math and numbers. You could be the numbers. I have some math and movement videos coming out that kind of play on this idea. You could give the task of looking for an example of a math idea in the world around you, or you could create it. So for example, you just did these multiplication problems. Find examples of these multiplication problems around the house. For example, a dozen eggs is usually, 2 by 6. A toothbrush with its little bristles, maybe count one of those little bundles of bristles, and that's a multiplication problem right there of how many bristles are on the whole toothbrush head. But yeah, just source ideas and look at the world around you of where you see math at work, and maybe go for a walk around the neighborhood and just chat and have a talk of where can you point out the math connections together as a family. There are also a lot of great resources out there. Some of my favorites are James Tanton with his Exploding Dots. That whole video series will blow your mind. From young students can understand it to adults like myself. The first time I watched it, I was like, that is what's happening. And it's taking knowledge that you thought you knew and just really making it deep. I love Vi Hart, and she really kind of helped stir up my love for math, and she's super quirky and it's deeply imaginative math. Number file videos are really great for older students, I think. The math is pretty deep, but I think I love the way that they kind of wonder and are in awe of math, and they find new questions to ask and new extensions. Dan Meyer and Fawn Nguyen, they're really great teachers with really great resources. They're very creative and they have really insightful lesson ideas. Desmos and Mathematician, they put together really great lessons. And again, all those resources I just listed, they're really good starting places to which you could apply a lot of these other creative and collaborative methods to build extension activities out of. Your home is your world now, and you can kind of do what you want and do what works best for you. This is a lot of information that I just shared, but just remember, these are just a bunch of tools, resources, and offerings. I think doing any one of these things will likely elevate your at-home teaching game. And maybe you can even use this as an opportunity to remind your child that you're also learning how to do this alongside with them. Because remember, you're a facilitator, not the holder of all rules and knowledge. And I think you could have a lot of fun doing a lot of these things together. And, after a month of being here and doing this shelter-in-place teaching thing, you might need some new ideas to kind of bring new life and spice it up. And yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to deepen learning insights. So to sum up the big strategies of how to become a rock star facilitator: 1, listen to social cues and be emotionally responsive to your child. 2, be mindful of what you're saying and the language that you're using, because that reflects your mindset. And 3, ask good follow-up questions to extend learning and dig deeper. And 4, be creative and collaborative with it. Find and create extension activities together as a family. So as always, we want to hear from you. What are you struggling with? Do you have any strategies to add to the ones we've shared? We are totally in community and learning with and from each other during this time. I love hearing from you, and this is new for everyone, so let's keep sharing and supporting one another.